Welcome back, and I hope everyone is having a good start to the school year. So that everyone can become acquainted with each other, within the chat box, using the first letter of your name, come up with a special word that best describes you. For example, my name is Monica Higgins, so I'm going to use the letter M for magnificent. And Wes and Lachina, if you can help me within the chat box to read those responses out, that would be great.
I can handle the chat, Monica, if you like.
Yes, that would be great, Wes, if you can handle the chat for me. And we're just kind of doing a quick icebreaker so that way people can become more acquainted with each other.
So Michelle said motivated.
Okay. And Wes, if you don't mind to admit people in as well for me.
Absolutely, I will do that. I'll take care of the lobby in the chat, Monica.
Okay.
And Jeremy Howard said jokester.
Okay. Okay.
And Corian said Corian C is for courageous.
Okay. That's awesome. Courageous. And again, if you're just coming and joining with us, we're just kind of doing a quick icebreaker. So we're coming up with a special word that best describes you using the first letter of your name. So again, my name is Monica and I am magnificent. And we've had several people to share a special word using the first letter of their first name. Are there any more coming in the chat, Wes?
There are. So Lashina Carruthers said good morning, and L is for lively. Anthony Young said authentic. Tammy Roberts, task oriented.
Okay, those are some great ones that I hear coming in. Okay, so for time constraint, I've heard a lot of great special words concerning everyone's name, but we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you guys so much for sharing and participating in our quick icebreaker. We really appreciate that. And if you're just joining us, if you could go ahead and just make sure that you are muted so that way I won't hear an echo in the background. But feel free to come off mute anytime you have a question, and I will try my best to answer your particular question. But in the meantime, just remain on mute for me.
We've got one new one, Monica, before we get started there. Andy Moberly, aware.
Okay, that's awesome. Aware, he's aware. Thank you so much, Andy. We really appreciate you sharing. So again, we'll go ahead and get started just for time. Welcome, everybody. I hope you're having a good start to the school year. And to also help with broadband on my end, I'm going to actually turn my camera off because I'm just feeling an echo on my end. So to help with broadband, I'm going to actually turn my camera off and then I will begin with the presentation. Okay, so the session information. This meeting is a discussion to walk you through the basic navigation of the GMAP systems, Title I, Part D, Subpart 1 Performance Report, in order to complete the fiscal year 2022 Performance Report successfully. Also,
hey, Monica.
This
is Anthony Young. I don't know if everybody else did, but we lost your presentation.
Okay, thank you so much, Anthony, for letting me know that. Okay, can you see it now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Anthony. I really appreciate you letting me know and giving me a heads up. So again, this meeting is a discussion to walk you through the basic navigation of the GMAP systems, the Title I Part D Subpart 1 Performance Report in order to complete the fiscal year 2022 Performance Report successfully. And I'm also going to share several resources, the Performance Report Guide, as well as our Title I Part D Subpart 1 Google Classroom and Performance Report Frequently Asked Questions.
Miss Higgins?
Uh-huh.
Hey, I'm so sorry to interrupt again, but on those resources that you're sharing, should we have access to that Google Classroom with the link?
Yes, you should have access. And if you don't have access, please feel free to share your email address within the chat. And after this presentation, I will make sure that you have those resources available.
Thank you. I didn't know if we needed it for this meeting or not, but I appreciate you. I'll just put my email in the chat.
Okay, sounds good. And I will certainly send you that information. Okay, so here's the first resource. It's the State Agency Institution Performance Report Grant Management Application and Planning System Guide. And this guide pretty much walks you through step by step on how to complete the performance report. It outlines certain pictures. It provides the purpose of the Title I Part D. It tells you step by step. It's more like a step by step tutorial on how to complete the performance report in depth. And I also wanted to share with you another resource, and this is the Frequently Asked Questions Performance Report. And again, it just outlines certain questions that have came up in the past for the performance report. And it's just more like a quick one-pager. It talks about the importance of the performance report and typical questions that we run into a lot of times, Wes and I do. But I'm going to go back to our presentation now. And those were the resources shared. And we also have the Google Classroom. Let's see if it'll allow me to log in and go through those. It's given me a lot of steps this morning. I apologize, but this is our Google Classroom, and it allows you to see all of our available resources. Say, for example, our Title I Part D handbook. It also gives you an overview. It talks about the Title I Part D statute, the timelines for submission. Now, Jeremy recently asked a great question. The timelines for submissions are always subject to change. And I will certainly send you an email regarding if there is a new deadline for those timeline submissions. It also gives you financial resources, application resources, performance report resources, child count resources, and monitoring resources. And again, our Title I Part D training resources, as well as new coordinators materials. So you can find pretty much all of our helpful resources on the Google Classroom. And I'll make sure to update this
some
information
folks
frequently.
entered their emails, and I went ahead and sent them an invite. And for anyone else who may not have access to this, in the chat, I just sent a link that if you click that link, you can join this Google Classroom. So just kind of an FYI for everybody.
Thank you so much, Wes, and I appreciate you getting everyone's email address and also putting in the Google Classroom link. And again, I just wanted to share and certainly emphasize our Google Classroom. This is where we house all of our materials for Subpart 1. But going back to today's outline, we just have a couple of Title I Part D Subpart 1 reminders. The performance reports are now open in GMAP and must be submitted by Friday, September 9th, 2022. And again, this is a data collection for this report, and it covers the period between July 1st, 2022 through June 30th, 2022. Also, I apologize in advance. The fiscal year 2023 Title I Part D Subpart 1 applications are not open. We are still awaiting for the finance team to insert in the fiscal 2023 allocation amounts. Again, the original deadline was August 31st. Hopefully the deadline will certainly be extended this year just because we're still waiting for the finance team to insert in the allocations. And I will certainly send out a massive email letting you know when the applications are open. But in the meantime, I know the applications are not open, but you can certainly start working on your performance report. Okay, we're going to take a deep dive and cover the performance report today. During this webinar, we are going to look at the Title I Part D Subpart 1 performance report in the Grant Management Application and Planning System, also referred to as GMAP. If you are new to GMAP, please reference the State Agency Institution Performance Report Guide, which I talked about earlier, and it's also located on the Subpart 1 webpage and also inserted within the Google Classroom. And again, all resources were sent via email in your Outlook calendar link as well.
Okay.
This guide will walk you through the basic navigation.
Yeah, not new math, but math elective. Math.
If you don't mind to go on mute for me, that would be great. This guide will walk you through the basic navigation of the GMAP system in order to complete the performance report successfully. We're going to walk through each page of the Title I Part D Subpart 1 performance report and look at the updated changes for this year and some common issues that have popped up in the past. There aren't any brand new questions, but some of the language has changed or have been added, and we will discuss this in more specific details later. And for the purpose of the practice today within the GMAP system, I'm going to use Northern Kentucky Youth Development Center's fiscal year 2022 performance report as a guide. We're going to start, for time constraint, we're going to start particularly with the Title I Part D Subpart 1 performance report sections page. Keep in mind, this report is always going to be under fiscal year 2022. The performance report is always a year behind because the data of collection is for students who were enrolled July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, and the years change annually. The first thing you need to know is the sections page is particularly the most important page. The sections page is important because before you can edit the report, you first want to make sure the report says report started. But since we're using Northern Kentucky, they have already completed it, and I'm going to use them as an example. But you want to make sure to pay close attention to the status and change the status to report started. And if you don't change the status, it will not allow you to insert in any information. So you must change it to report started. Also, you want to make sure to pay close attention to these icons right here. You have the history log, and the history log allows you to see past comments. You also can create a comment, and once you create a comment, that will come to either Lachina or myself, and we can see any questions or particular information that you wanted to share with us regarding your performance report. And you also have access to see the contact. It allows you to show the program's point person under the contacts page. So the contact page right here, if you click on this, and for time constraint, I'm not going to click on it, it should show the overall person responsible for completing the performance report. Once you scroll down until you find the Title I Part D Performance Report section, the first page under the Performance Report section is called the Guidance and Instruction. And under the Guidance and Instruction, the first thing that you particularly need to do is to read the information. The definitions at the bottom of these pages are important because it helps you to select the correct program type. So, for example, again, I cannot say this enough. This report is the data collection for July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Again, you want to make sure that you are selecting your program, the correct program type. If you are an adult corrections, you would select each facility under Department of Corrections will select adult corrections. At-risk programs, they may be served by Title I Part D funding, but they do not generate any funding. And at this time, Kentucky does not serve any at-risk programs using Title I Part D funds. All of the facilities receiving funding also help to generate the funding. Mostly for DJJ facilities, you're going to select this, the juvenile corrections. And the juvenile corrections is under the Department of Juvenile Justice or Subpart 2 facility that is not a detention center. Juvenile detention facilities will select a juvenile detention center on the next page. So if you DJJ, you're either going to select juvenile corrections or juvenile detention facilities. Are there any questions so far when it comes to the guidance and instruction page?
Ms. Higgins, I'm not able to see your screen. I don't know if you're sharing that. All I have is just that first slide up that says session information. I don't know why it's not following you, but like I'm not able to see anything.
Is anyone else having this problem?
I'm seeing your current, the guidance and instruction screen on my end, Monica. How about everybody else? Are you all seeing the guidance and instruction, or is it showing the first slide for other folks? I see Amber Skaggs is in the chat saying that she sees guidance and instruction. I'm sorry, I cut somebody off. I'm sorry.
Nope, I can see guidance and instruction as well.
Okay. For the particular one that said they can't see my screen, I would just recommend to possibly restart your computer, possibly, and re-click on the link or close it out in the Outlook calendar link if you can come back in, possibly.
Yeah, good point, Monica. I think that's the only thing I can think of also that might refresh that. Maybe leave the meeting and then join again. Only other thing that might do it. Yeah, and a lot of folks are kind of saying, you know, that they're seeing the guidance and instruction screen. Andy Moberly, Korean, Anthony, Michelle, Jeremy Howard. And Jeremy, about your mic, there's at the top right or top bottom, there's a screen. If you do need to weigh in and use your mic, you should be able to click or unclick the mic to turn it off and on. It should do that, keyword being should.
And going back to the guidance and instructions, so again, if you are DOC, Department of Corrections, you're going to select Adult Corrections. And if you're a part of DJJ, you're either going to select Juvenile Corrections. A lot of times this is the content that you select, but if you have a juvenile detention facility, then you will select this. All right. And again, if there are not any questions on this particular page, then you will move on and we're going to go to the next page. And I'm going to use the go-to page because the go-to page is either at the bottom or the top of each page. And it just allows you to go to the next page or the previous page, or you can just stay on the current page. So the go-to buttons are very important. We're going to go to the next page using the go-to buttons. So let's see. I don't know what happened here. Let me go back again. Let's try it one more time. There we go. All right, so under demographic data, the important thing to keep in mind when you are completing this page is to, again, read it very carefully. So let's look at the very first box. You'll select your program type based on those definitions from the previous page. And again, just using Northern Kentucky as an example, they have selected juvenile corrections. And again, what I've already alluded to, majority of the time, all DJJ facilities should select juvenile corrections. And if you're DOC, you're going to select adult corrections. All right, so the first box that we kind of particularly want to pay close attention to is the student demographic box. This section is an unduplicated count, meaning students can be counted only once, regardless of the number of times of re-entry. And again, I cannot say this enough, you want to make sure to count the students who were served at your facility July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. And again, this particular box is just the beginning of student demographics with gender. So you want to count all your males and females, and it already pre-populates the total number for the gender. The next section is the race and ethnicity box within the demographic data page. This section is also an unduplicated count, meaning you're only going to count the students one time. And again, there is a little bit of directions letting you know what is counted one time versus what for unduplicated count versus what is counted multiple times. So pay close attention to each particular section. And again, under the race and ethnicity, you're going to just add all of your race and ethnicity that you have, particularly in your facility. And again, the total number for gender, which was 13 for Northern Kentucky, it is also the same number for the race and ethnicity, and that is correct. So the number that you put for the gender should also be the same number that you put for the total for race and ethnicity, as well as the age. So the first three boxes, you should have the same total. And again, age, this age box, it is an unduplicated count, so students can only be counted one time in this section. And please keep in mind the totals should match the previous two sections with race and ethnicity as well as gender. Now, this is very important because this particularly is a new section. It's not a new section, but new vocabulary to this section. Under types of students served, this pertains to students with disabilities, English language learners, and the number of long-term unduplicated students who were enrolled 90 plus consecutive calendar days. So we have a new section that has been revised for the IDEA department. And so you want to make sure particularly that you are counting your special education students, students with a disability who have a disability, have an individual education plan, an IEP, and they also did not receive a high school diploma or equivalent to the GED. And again, you want to make sure that you are counting your English language learner students and your long-term unduplicated students who were enrolled 90 plus consecutive calendar days. And I would like to reiterate this long-term unduplicated students who were enrolled 90 plus consecutive calendar days. This long-term number is very important because when we get to the next two pages, that long-term number that you enter right here under types of students served, that long-term number should also be the same number for your long-term students for your reading and math language art pages on the next pages. We're going to move right along to the next section, the academic and vocational outcomes while in the facility. And again, this section is unduplicated count. You want to enter the number of students who at any point during enrollment earned one of the outcomes in this section. Please keep in mind, earning a GED or a high school diploma is a one-time outcome, but students can be counted as having attained more than one outcome. For example, a student may have earned high school course credits and a high school diploma while in the facility. The count should reflect actual outcomes, not anticipated outcomes. So you want to make sure that you're counting actual outcomes and not anticipated outcomes when completing the performance report data. Students can earn an academic or vocational outcome more than once during the reporting year, but should only be counted once in this outcome. For example, a student who earned 5 course credits would be counted as one student earning a high school course credit in this count. Remember, the exceptions would be for those outcomes and that can only be attained once, such as earning a GED or a high school diploma. And looking at Northern Kentucky, so they have 12 students that earn high school course credits, as an example. And everyone is going to look different just because you have students earning a high school credits, you have students earning a GED, and then you also have students being accepted into a post-secondary education or enrolled in a job training course, or the student might obtain employment. So this particular section while in the facility is going to look a lot different for every facility. The next section is kind of the same. It has the same criteria as far as information. The only caveat is it is for unduplicated students after exiting the facility. This again is an unduplicated count, and in this section, you will enter the number of students who, after exiting the facility within 90 calendar days, obtain one of the outcomes in this section. Each student should only be counted as enrolling in a local school district up to 90 days after exiting. Enrolling in a local district is a one-time outcome per student, just like earning a GED or a high school diploma. Again, the count should reflect actual outcomes and not anticipated outcomes. Just like the previous screen, students can earn an academic or vocational outcome more than once during the reporting year, but should only be counted once in that outcome. So looking at this particular section after exiting the facility for Northern Kentucky, they didn't have any students that earned a high school or GED or job training or enrolled in a post-secondary education or obtain employment. And again, it is imperative if you don't have any information, please ensure that you enter zeros in these gray boxes if you don't have any data to insert in or any numbers to insert in. So make sure that you're adding in zeros. The last section on the demographic data page is the average length of stay. This section is where duplicated count comes in. So this means counting more than once. The average length of stay is determined by the number of students served and should include the number of days per visit for the student enrolled during the reporting year, regardless of the entry and exit date. Multiple visits for students who were enrolled more than once during the reporting year can be counted. So enter the number of students served can be a duplicated count. Each visit is counted as one time, regardless of how many times the students have a re-entry. Then enter the total number of days of services were provided. You'll enter the number of days of services were provided, and a lot of times this is a huge number because you're going to count the student multiple times, regardless of re-entry and the exit date. For example, if a student is enrolled for 20 days, then exits and returns for the facility for the next 30 days, the number of days of services, that would be 50 days for the student, for this one student, and he or she will be counted as twice in the total number of days for this section. Also, all calendar days are based on a 7-day week, even if the academic portion is a 5-day week. The system will then calculate the average length of stay. So you enter the total number of students served, and this can be counted more than once. And again, she has the same total number that she had before in the age column, the race and ethnicity column, and the gender column, looking above. So she has the number of 13. And then her total number of days of services provided, that is a huge number just because she is counting the students multiple times. So for example, you might have Johnny that came to the facility multiple times, and she is counting the exit days as well as the re-entry days. And you might have Sarah that comes again, and she might just be there one day. So this number is going to be a huge number based on each student, and you need to count the number of days of services provided for each student, including their entry day as well as their exit day. Are there any questions on the demographic data page before I go to the next page? And Wes, let me know if anything is coming in the chat. I can't particularly see it.
Will do. No questions yet, Monica.
Okay, we're going to move right along to our next page.
I have a question, Monica.
Anthony has his hand up.
Okay.
Do we include fall break, Christmas break in that number mix?
That is a good question.
Because if we're including the 7 days, then
that brings up a good question, Anthony. A lot of times where it depends on, was instruction provided during those fall breaks, and during that break time, was instruction provided?
they have the option. So we would have a couple of students, but not everybody participating.
Okay, so in that sense, even if you're on fall break, you want to make sure that you are only for those students that are still receiving educational services, you can count them. But say if you're on break and they're not receiving educational services or any instruction, then you wouldn't count that time. But if, say for example, if you are providing educational instruction, then you would. That's a great question. Are there any more questions?
I don't see any questions about the current that current information, Monica.
Okay, so I have used the Go To button, and we just moved to the next page. Thank you, Wes. The math data page. On this page, you will be provided an unduplicated number of long-term students who participated in math pre and post testing. The count of these students are for your long-term student placement. So again, as I already alluded to, Northern Kentucky Youth Development Center, on that previous page, their long-term student number was 11. In that particular types of students served section, their long-term students who were enrolled 90 plus consecutive calendar days was 11. So looking at their math data page, the count of long-term students who took the pre and post test, they have 11. The count of long-term students who tested at or above it was 1. And then the long-term students who tested below grade levels on the pre and post test was 10. So we know for certain that these two columns right here should equal the 11. So you want to make sure these two columns, and hopefully everyone can see my arrow, these two columns right here should equal the 11. And the count of long-term students only who took the post test was 4. So they have the count of long-term student who took the post test was 4. The count of long-term students with negative grade level change from the pre and post test exam was 1. And then the count of long-term students with no change in grade level from the pre and post test was 1 as well. And then the count of long-term students who made an improvement up to 1 full grade level from the pre and post test exams was 1. And again, the student with improvement more than 1 full grade level from the pre and post test exam was 1 as well. So looking at the bottom of these particular rows, it all equals the number of students who took the post test, which is 4. Are there any particular questions when it comes to the math data page? And again, Wes, please let me know if anything is coming within the chat.
Will do, Monica. No questions yet.
Okay. All right. Since Wes is alluding to that there's not any questions, we're going to move right along to the next page. So our next page, and it is similar to the math page, is the Reading and Language Arts data page. Okay. The count of long-term students, and it's the same criteria as beforehand, and it follows the same exact guidelines as the math and data pages. So again, just looking at Northern Kentucky's data for the Reading and Language Arts data page, they have 10 and 1, and it matches the students that took the pre and post test. And again, the count of long-term students who took the post test, again, it was 4, and the numbers underneath, they all equal up to be 4 as well. Now we're going to go back to the main sections page. On this main sections page, right here, there's a column that says validations. And before you can submit, you want to make sure that you don't see any error messages or any validations, because the GMAP system will not allow you to submit your data collection information if you have any error messages. If the system flags errors within your report, you will not be able to submit. There should be a column right here under the validations where you can see the message links on this sections page to review any errors or any warnings. If you have errors, you need to make sure you correct them before you submit, and then the report will follow the same workflow as it has always done in the past. So at the district level, the report should have been started, completed, and then approved by the district or the state agency director before it is submitted to the Kentucky Department of Education. The only new piece is it will show that the KDE has approved it at the very top. So right now, for example, looking at Northern Kentucky Youth Development Center's current status on the main sections page, the status shows Title I Part D Performance Report completed. It also really needs to be moved to the next level to show Title I Part D Performance Report approved. And then once it shows approved, it will come to KDE and I will approve or deny the performance report and let you know if any revisions need to occur. And I will add and create a comment if any revisions need to occur on my end. And Lachina and Amber will also create in a comment letting you know if any revisions need to occur. And all messages will be housed within the history log. And if you have any questions regarding your Title I Part D performance report, please do not hesitate to contact me. And again, thank you. Are there any questions, particularly coming in the chat, Wes, before we go back to the PowerPoint?
No questions at the moment, Monica. If any come in, I'll let you know.
Okay. And Anthony, you had a great question beforehand about break time, and do we still need to count that? And that was a great question. Are there any more questions? Also, before I let everyone go, I wanted to let you know that next year we have received information from the U.S. Department of Education just alluding to that there will be major changes occurring to the performance report for the upcoming data collection for the 2022 and the 2023 school year reporting. So moving forward for next year's reporting, the performance report is going to have a lot of changes. So I kind of just wanted to make everyone aware of that moving forward, based on the U.S. Department of Education increasing their performance report data collection. Any more questions, Wes?
There, no questions in the chat at this moment, Monica. Lashina Crothers just said thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining us today. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me or send me an email or give me a call if you have any questions pertaining to your performance report. And hopefully soon you will be able to work on your application. Thank you.